Tonight, step into a world where royal marriages were not made for love, but for power, land, and survival. Behind castle walls, a single glance across a candlelit hall could threaten a crown, destroy a knight, and shake an entire kingdom. These were not simple love stories, they were dangerous triangles of desire, duty, betrayal, and ambition. So before we enter the shadows of the Middle Ages, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy slow, atmospheric history told for sleep, relaxation, and curiosity. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let's uncover the royal love triangles that shook the Middle Ages. Hey guys, tonight you find yourself beneath the western gate of a medieval town, with cold stone at your shoulder, damp straw under a cartwheel, smoke snagged in the rafters of the gatehouse, and distant bells trembling through the river mist. Mud grips your boots as if the road has grown fond of you, and torchlight runs along the wet wall like thin honey. A horse snorts nearby, its breath white in the winter air, while a guard in a fur-lined cloak looks at you as though you personally invented bad weather. Medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience, assuming they existed, which mercifully for parchment makers, they do not. You shift your pack, feel the chill creep through wool, and accept the gentle truth that you probably would not last a week out here without blisters, lice, or a deeply suspicious bowl of pottage. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while the gate creaks open, tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step under the arch as the last red of evening thins behind the battlements. The gate groans above you, iron hinges complaining in a tired voice, and the town receives you with all the warmth of a damp wool blanket. Still, shelter is no small mercy when the road behind lies rutted, black, and shining with puddles. Beyond the gatehouse, the street slopes between timbered houses leaning close together as if trading secrets over your head. Rushlights glow in narrow windows. A woman empties a bucket into the gutter with confidence. Somewhere a dog barks once, decides you're not worth the effort, and vanishes into fog. Bells ring again from a church you cannot yet see. They do not tell time with cheerful precision, but with the patience of monasteries and winter. The sound rolls over roof tiles, pig pens, alehouses, and carts at the market cross, then settles in your bones. It is the hour when gates close, hearths are stirred, and folk hurry indoors before the night air gives them a cough, or, according to several elderly women, an opportunity for spirits to count their teeth. You pass a hanging sign painted with a crowned swan, its beak chipped by weather, and a thin boy pushes past carrying rushes for a hall floor. Fresh rushes are a blessing where every boot brings mud. Some swear sweet herbs should be mixed among them: meadow, sweet, lavender, perhaps wormwood to discourage fleas, ill humours, and gloomy thoughts. No one can quite agree whether the herbs truly work, but everyone agrees they are better than old rushes, which remember too much. The town breathes around you. Bakers rake coals beneath clay ovens, a fishwife folds smoked eels into a wicker basket, a tinker packs his tools, muttering about market tolls as if toll collectors are winter mould. Near the gate, a shrine to St. Wulfric leans in its niche, garlanded with faded thread and 3 bent pins. Travellers touch the stone as they pass. You do the same, because refusing a saint at dusk feels bold. Then you hear the first whisper, Only a name, caught between two guards beside a brazier. The Queen. One guard says it softly, his beard silvered by smoke. The other crosses himself, though whether from reverence, fear, or habit is hard to tell. They fall silent as you draw near, but the word stays with you, small and bright as an ember under ash. You move on, your boots sucking at the mud. The street bends toward the market square, where empty stalls sleep beneath patched awnings. Merchants argue over space from morning, placing stones to mark their claims, because no one trusts another person not to steal the best corner by the cheese sellers. A bellman calls that loose pigs after curfew will be forfeit, and that no man may carry naked flame through the tanner's lane unless he wishes to answer to the bailiff and God. Above the roofs, the castle rises a dark block against bruised sky. Torch points burning along the wall, you smell the river below it, cold and metallic, mixed with dung, wood smoke, wet leather, and malt from a brewer's yard. The world narrows into those smells, those bells, that black shape on the hill. A cart stands broken near the square, one wheel tilted like a drunk at confession. Its owner, a broad woman in a russet hood, curses it with restraint. You help her lift a sack of coarse bread away from the axle, and she rewards you with a crust, hard enough to trouble your teeth but warm at the centre. Bread at dusk has a holiness no relic can entirely outrank. Best keep your ears closed tonight, she says, nodding toward the castle. The walls are full of love, and that is never good for ordinary people. You look up, chewing slowly. She lowers her voice. They say the king came home early from the northern march. They say the queen wore blue at chapel when she should have worn white. They say Sir Alaric took the long stair instead of the public hall. She shrugs, as if these scraps explain a kingdom. Perhaps they do. In courts, colours can speak louder than trumpets, and stairways may be more dangerous than battlefields. Those who tell the tale never fully agree on how it begins. Some place its first spark in a tournament yard, where a knight catches a lady's fallen glove. Others swear it begins in a chapel, beneath beeswax candles, when two hands reach for the same prayer book. But here, as evening settles and you lick crumbs from your fingers, the story begins with a gate, a rumour, and the ache in the air before trouble wears a crown. Light flickers in a high window of the keep, then vanishes. Around you, shutters close one by one. Somewhere in the fog, the dog that dismissed you earlier appears again and trots at your heel with the mild confidence of an animal that has chosen your destiny without consultation. The western gate thuds shut behind you. The sound is not loud, yet it settles over the town like a lid on a pot. You stand beneath the smoky sky, with mud at your hem and the castle watching from above. The bells fade, the torches grow brighter, and in the hush that follows, you understand that royal love, when it curdles into secrecy, does not stay behind embroidered curtains. It leaks into kitchens and stables, into tolls and trials, into songs sung by boys sweeping floors, and into the sleep of strangers who only wanted a warm corner for the night. You're one of those strangers now. You draw your cloak closer, feel the damp wool press against your neck, and begin walking toward the glow of an alehouse door, where the rumour is already waiting. You do not reach the alehouse door before the sky changes its mind. The first drops fall softly, almost politely, tapping on your hood and the crooked sign of the crowned swan. Then the rain thickens into a cold curtain, silver in the torchlight, needling the mud until every rut becomes a little brown mirror. The dog at your heel gives you a look of personal disappointment, as if you arranged the weather for dramatic effect, and trots beneath a cart where it can judge you from a drier place. A shout rises behind you, back toward the western gate. You turn with the rest of the square. Guards are moving there, lanterns swinging. A merchant curses as his covered bales soak through. A woman gathers her hens under her cloak, which works about as well as you would expect, though the hens seem convinced this is a formal procession in their honour. The gate, which has only just closed with all the finality of a tomb lid, begins to open again. That alone is enough to make people pause. Town gates are not opened at night for anyone ordinary. At dusk, the world is sorted into those safely inside, those unfortunately outside, and those rich or dangerous enough to disturb the arrangement. The porter's hall at the beam. Iron complains. Rain runs down the guard captain's nose and into his beard, and he endures it with the grim dignity of a man who has long ago stopped expecting comfort from life. You move closer, drawn by the same instinct that draws every soul in the square. The humble and ancient wish to know someone else's business. The gatehouse swallows you with a smell of wet stone, old straw, lamp smoke, horse sweat, and leather. A brazier glows in the centre, hissing whenever rain blows through the arch. Men and women crowd along the walls, 2 wool merchants with damp caps, a potter carrying wrapped bowls, a pilgrim with a scallop badge sewn to his cloak, and the russet-hooded bread woman from the cart, who nods as if she expected you to be foolish enough to follow. "Never trust a gate opened twice," she murmurs. No one can quite agree whether that is an old saying or something she has just invented to sound wise. But in the gatehouse, with water trickling between the stones, it feels true enough. Beyond the arch, a rider appears in the rain. His horse staggers more than walks, hooves splashing through the dark road. The animal's flanks steam. The rider bends low over the saddle, cloak plastered to his back, hood fallen, hair stuck to his face like black thread. A small leather satchel hangs across his chest, sealed shut with wax and wrapped in oiled cloth. Even from where you stand, you see the way one gloved hand grips it, not like a man carrying ordinary letters about sheep prices or overdue rents, like a man carrying a coal from a burning house. The guards pull him in. The gate closes again behind him, and the sound rolls through the chamber. Someone crosses herself. Someone else spits lightly into the straw, a habit meant to turn aside ill luck, though mostly it troubles the straw. A groom takes the horse's bridle and whispers to it, because folk here believe a winded horse must be soothed before it drinks, lest cold water strike its heart. The rider nearly falls when he dismounts. You step aside as they bring him to the brazier. Water drips from his sleeves. His boots are crusted with the road clay. A scrape marks his cheek, not fresh enough to be alarming, but enough to invite every stare in the room. The captain asks his name. "Martin of Ashford," the rider says, teeth chattering. "From the North Road for the Royal Hand." That phrase settles strangely. The Royal Hand could mean the king. It could mean his steward. It could mean, if said by someone cautious and half-frozen, almost anyone near enough to power to make smaller people nervous. The captain notices the satchel, whose seal. The rider hesitates. It is a small hesitation, no longer than the blink of a candle flame, but the gatehouse feels it. Merchants lean in. The pilgrim stills his fingers on his badge. The bread woman's eyes narrow, and you understand that she collects rumours the way some people collect saints' teeth carefully, reverently, and with doubts about authenticity. "Her Grace's," the rider says at last. Rain ticks on the roof, somewhere outside. The bells give one slow note, softened by weather. The Queen's seal. The captain's mouth tightens. At this hour. The rider does not answer quickly, which is answer enough for everyone present. A queen may send letters for many reasons: alms, household accounts, petitions from widows, orders for cloth, words of courtesy to abbots and noble cousins. Yet this rider comes at night, soaked to the bone, clutching wax like a sinner clutches a rosary. Some swear that a letter carried after curfew is already chosen aside before it is opened. The captain holds out his hand. Martin of Ashford does not give him the satchel. That is when the room truly wakes. Not loudly. No one gasps as in a minstrel's tale. Real fear is quieter. It presses shoulders back against walls. It makes breathing shallow. The potter lowers his bundle of bowls to the floor. The pilgrim mutters a prayer to St. Christopher, patron of travellers, though whether this counts as travel or bad judgment is unclear. The dog slips in through the gatehouse door and shakes rain over your boots, because apparently even kingdom-shaking intrigue must make room for small insults. The rider says, "I was told it must pass only to Sir Alaric." There it is. The name from the bread woman's whisper, the long stare, the blue gown, the queen, the knight. Sir Alaric is not the king. Everyone in the gatehouse knows this with the unpleasant clarity of a toothache. He is the king's favoured companion in war, a man sung about in border camps, a man whose shield bears 3 silver hawks, a man whose smile, according to alewives and laundry maids, has caused more dropped buckets than any sensible face should. You have not seen him yet, but already the room gives him shape tall, dangerous, well-loved, and standing far too near the Queen in the imagination of a town that badly needs sleep. The captain's hand stays open. All letters entering after curfew are shown. Not this one. Then it waits till morning. The rider closes his fist around the satchel strap. It cannot. The brazier pops. Sparks climb and vanish. You watch the wax at the satchel's flap glimmer deep red beneath its oiled wrapping. People later will argue about that seal. Some will swear it shows the Queen's lily. Others insist it bears her private knot, used only among her women. Even now, it is hard to tell whether anyone truly sees it clearly, or whether the rain, torchlight, and hunger for scandal paint more than the eye can honestly hold. A guard offers the rider warm ale in a wooden cup, because warm ale is the answer to cold, shock, grief, childbirth, toothache, and most forms of political disaster. Martin drinks with shaking hands. The captain sends a boy running uphill to the castle, bare legs flashing beneath his tunic, cloak held over the lantern. Until he returns, no one leaves. So you wait. You wait beside sacks of wool and a dripping saddle. You wait while rain thickens beyond the arch and the town grows muffled around you. You wait while a guard pushes fresh straw over the wet patches and an old woman ties red thread around her wrist to keep fever away. You wait while the rider warms his hands, never taking his eyes from the satchel. The half-burned candle near the guard table gutters low. The dog settles beside your boot as if this, too, has been agreed between you, and above the town, beyond rain and roofs and closed shutters, the castle burns with watchlights, holding its breath. At last! The boy returns from the castle with rain shining on his face and fear tucked behind his eyes. He brings no grand command, no trumpet, no royal officer in velvet. Only a quiet order passed to the captain, who listens, frowns, and looks once at Martin of Ashford as though the rider has become a problem with boots. The satchel is not opened in the gatehouse. That fact alone feeds every person there for a week. 2 guards take Martin between them, not roughly, but firmly enough to suggest that royal letters may travel under their own sort of arrest. The rider keeps both hands on the satchel. He is led out into the rain and up the hill toward the castle, where watchlights blur behind mist. The captain tells the rest of you to go home, or to an inn, or to any place where your faces will not continue asking questions. You accept this wisdom with the humble obedience of someone who very much intends to ask questions elsewhere. The alehouse door glows at the edge of the square, low and golden beneath a thatched roof dark with rain. Its sign shows a swan, though the painter has given it the expression of a disappointed goose. You duck inside, and warmth folds around you in a damp, smoky embrace. The room smells of malt, wood ash, wet wool, onions, spilled ale, old rushes, and humanity doing its best under difficult circumstances. Soot-black rafters hang low overhead. Beeswax candles burn near the serving board, though most tables make do with tallow dips that smell faintly of sheep and regret. The floor is strewn with rushes, some fresh, some not. Your boots sink into them with a soft crackle. A servant girl pushes through the room with wooden cups stacked against her chest. Near the hearth, a pot of pottage bubbles slowly, thick with peas, barley, leeks, and whatever else has surrendered to the spoon. A strip of smoked fish hangs above the fire, drying further into something that may survive longer than several dynasties. You find a place on a bench beside the russet-hooded bread woman who has somehow reached the alehouse before you, which suggests either a shortcut or a talent for appearing wherever gossip ripens. The dog settles beneath the table and sighs as if it has carried the kingdom here on its back. A cup of warm ale is placed before you. It is brown, cloudy, and faintly spiced, with enough heat to bring feeling back into your fingers. In winter, alehouses are not just places to drink. They are shelters, message boards, courts of opinion, and unofficial schools where everyone learns exactly what everyone else has done wrong. Tonight, the lesson is royalty. At the next table, a carter says, "It will be nothing." No one believes him, including the carter. A wool merchant wipes rain from his beard. Nothing does not ride through a closed gate with the Queen's wax. "Could have been alms," says the potter, though softly. Alms to Sir Alaric, the bread woman says, "Bless his poverty. May we all suffer with such fine horses." A few people chuckle, not loudly. In a town beneath a castle, laughter learns to keep its hood up. You warm your hands around the cup and listen. The talk begins, as talk often does, with certainty, then quickly wanders into fog. Some swear that Queen Isolde first favoured Sir Alaric after he saved the king's banner in the Northern March. Others insist the king himself placed Alaric in her household guard, because rulers have always had a gift for arranging their own discomfort, and then acting surprised when it arrives wearing polished boots. No one can quite agree whether the Queen looked at the knight too long during Michaelmas Mass, or whether the old prior only imagined it because he dislikes young men with clean hair. But beneath the jokes and guesses lies a harder truth, one the alehouse knows well. Royal marriages are not woven from affection first. They are stitched from borders, dowries, alliances, heirs, grudges, and the careful counting of lands. A princess may cross half a world to marry a man she has met only through a painted likeness. And even that likeness may be kinder than honest. A king may take a bride because her father controls a river crossing, or because her uncle has ships, or because her womb is expected to quiet 3 quarrels before Candlemas. The bread woman tears a loaf with both hands. "They trade them like winter cattle," she says, passing you a piece. Only cattle are sometimes asked if they are lame. You take the bread. It is coarse, dark, and good. You dip it into pottage when the servant brings the bowl, and the warmth spreads through you slowly. Around you, men and women speak with the peculiar pity common folk sometimes feel for queens, who sleep on linen, wear jewels, and yet may have less say in their own lives than a goose choosing which puddle to stand in. A peddler at the hearth lifts a finger. He wears a belt crowded with little wares bone buttons, thread, needles, tin buckles, packets of dried herbs. There are ways, he says, to soften a cold marriage. Every head turns just enough. He smiles into his cup. My aunt swore by Bethany under the pillow, keeps away bad dreams, sour tempers, and husbands who snore like millstones. My husband would need a whole field of Bethany, says a laundress. The room hums gently. Some swear that rosemary tied with red thread can turn a lover's thoughts homeward. Others say apple seeds counted by candlelight reveal whom the heart truly wants. One old man claims that if a wife places a hazelnut in the hearth for herself and one for her husband, the way they burn will show whether love stays or strays. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such charms guide the heart or simply give frightened people something to do with their hands. The talk circles back to Queen Isolde. You begin to see her not as a bright figure high above you, but as a woman walking cold corridors under watchful eyes. Perhaps she has ladies around her every hour, maids to dress her hair, chaplains to weigh her conscience, stewards to count her expenses, and still no corner truly her own. Perhaps she smiles beside the king beneath painted rafters, while every gesture is measured like cloth. Perhaps Sir Alaric, with his silver hawks and road-worn cloak, brings not wickedness at first, but attention, a cup offered before she asks, a lowered voice, a look that sees the woman beneath the crown. That the alehouse agrees without saying it is often where ruin begins. Not with thunder, not with swords, with someone being kind at the wrong time. The fire drops lower. A servant rakes the coals with iron tongs, sending sparks up the chimney. Rain rattles on the thatch. The half-burned candle from the gatehouse seems to have followed you in spirit, for another candle near the serving board gutters in the same tired way, bending whenever the door opens. A young groom comes in from the castle yard, shaking water from his cap. The room pretends not to notice him, which is the surest sign everyone notices him completely. He buys ale, drinks too quickly, and says nothing until the bread woman offers him the end of a loaf. Then he mutters, Sir Alaric has not been seen in the hall. The alehouse stills. Nor the queen, asks the merchant. The groom looks into his cup. Her lady says she prays. This means everything and nothing. Queens pray often, so do guilty men, frightened children, gamblers, sailors, mothers, thieves, and anyone who hears a tax collector at the door. The statement floats above the tables, gathering meanings like burrs on a cloak. Outside, the church bell sounds again, marking the deepening night. You feel sleep tug at the edges of your thoughts, but the room will not quite release you. Royal love, you are learning, is never merely love. It is weather. It moves over fields, roads, kitchens, and ale benches. It changes what people fear, what they whisper, what they pay, whom they trust. You finish your ale. The dog nudges your boot. The bread woman leans close enough for you to smell flour on her sleeve. Remember this, she says. When great hearts break, small folk sweep the pieces. The fire sighs. Rain keeps falling. And somewhere above the town, behind wet stone and guarded doors, a queen's letter waits in the dark. Morning comes slowly, not with golden trumpets, but with a grey patience of wet roofs and reluctant roosters. You wake on a bench near the alehouse hearth, your cloak pulled close, your boots still damp, and the dog curled against your ankle as though you are now legally responsible for it. The fire has sunk into red eyes beneath ash. Around you, sleepers stir beneath wool blankets, muttering at the cold as if winter might apologize and leave. The servant girl moves through the room, scattering fresh rushes over the floor with a basket on her hip. She tucks sprigs of rosemary and rue among them, because some swear rue discourages fleas and evil glances, though the fleas have never formally given their opinion. The smell is sharp and green beneath the old smoke. You sit up, rub your stiff neck, and remember the rider, the Queen's seal, Sir Alaric's name settling over the gatehouse like frost. The breadwoman is already awake, of course. She sits near the door with a cup of small ale and the expression of someone who has heard 3 secrets before breakfast and found only one worth keeping. Market day, she says. Best place to buy onions and ruin reputations. You follow her outside. The square has changed in the night, where rain puddles shone beneath torchlight. Morning now lays a pale wash over awnings, carts, baskets, and trestle tables. Merchants raise striped cloths against a sky the colour of pewter. A man hammers pegs into mud to hold his stall, each blow dull and steady. Women spread coarse linen, wooden bowls, horn spoons, and bundles of dyed thread. A fish seller lifts smoked herrings from a barrel, and the smell drifts bravely into the cold, challenging every nose within reach. The church bell rings prime, slow and round, calling monks and townfolk alike into the order of the day. Near the market cross, a toll collector sits beneath a hooded cloak with a wax tablet, recording fees for carts, baskets, and beasts. Nobody loves him. This is perhaps the most stable political fact in the kingdom. You move between stalls as the town wakes fully. Here are trenchers stacked like wooden moons. Here are apples wrinkled from winter storage, onions braided in straw, oatcakes wrapped in cloth, and little clay jars of honey sealed with wax. A woman sells herbs from a wicker tray betony, vervain, yarrow, comfrey, lavender, and dried rose petals gone dark at the edges. She tells a young maid that vervain hung above a bed keeps quarrels away. No one can quite agree whether it truly works. But it gives unhappy rooms a nicer smell, which may be half the battle. At another stall, pilgrim badges glitter in dull pewter tiny scallop shells, saints with oversized eyes, a little sword of St. Michael, a crowned virgin, a bent-legged St. Roch showing his plague sore with unsettling cheer. People pin them to hats and cloaks as proof of journeys taken, vows made, miracles requested, or neighbours impressed. You watch a court page buy a badge of St. Valentine, then hide it quickly in his sleeve when a guard passes. The breadwoman notices too, naturally. Not for his mother, she murmurs. You begin to see that the market is not merely a place of trade. It is a language. Everyone speaks in goods, colours, small gestures, and carefully chosen nonsense. A ribbon is never only a ribbon when it is blue, and the Queen wore blue at chapel. A sprig of rosemary may mean remembrance, unless it means mourning, unless it means someone wants you to think it means nothing at all. A glove left behind may be clumsiness, invitation, or bait. Courtly love, it seems, requires more laundry than anyone admits. You stop before a ribbon stall where dyed strips hang from a cord, stirring in the cold wind indigo, saffron, russet, green, white, and a deep blue, almost purple in the morning gloom. The dyer's hands are stained to the nails. He sees you looking and says, "For a sweetheart, for a sleeve, for a horse bridle, all lawful users, depending who asks." A young noblewoman's maid stands nearby, selecting thread with too much care. Her cloak is plain, but the clasp at her throat is silver. She chooses blue silk, then white, then blue again. The dyer wraps it without comment. The maid pays with a clipped coin and slips the packet beneath her cloak. Queen's household, says the breadwoman after the maid has gone. How can you tell? Shoes too clean for kitchen work, eyes too tired for innocence. You continue through the stalls, and the dog trots between your legs with a crust stolen from somewhere. Overhead, crows line the roof of the guild hall, black and damp, judging commerce. Children chase each other around a barrel until a baker threatens them with a floury hand. Near the well, an old woman ties love knots from coloured thread, though she calls them health knots when the priest walks by. Some swear that if a knot is tied while naming a beloved under one's breath, the beloved will dream of the knot-maker before dawn. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such knots bind hearts, or simply bind hope into something small enough to carry. Then the market shifts. Not visibly at first. No trumpet sounds. No herald rides in. Yet people begin to turn toward the upper street, where the road climbs to the castle. A pair of royal servants enters the square, cloaks dark from the morning mist. One carries an empty basket. The other carries himself like a man instructed not to be noticed, which is always the most noticeable way to carry oneself. They pass the butcher, the potter, the fish barrels, and pause at the ribbon stall. The dyer bows low. The servant selects no ribbons from the front. Instead, the dyer reaches beneath the table and brings out a narrow packet tied in plain thread. You see only a flash before it disappears into the servant's sleeve blue silk, a scrap of white linen, and something small wrapped in green. The breadwoman's mouth tightens. Herbs, she says, rosemary, maybe, or rue, or marjoram if someone is foolishly romantic before dinner. The servant turns away, but as he does, the packet slips just enough for a tiny pewter badge to fall into the mud. It lands near your boot. Without thinking, you bend and pick it up. St. Valentine again. The badge is cold and soft-edged in your palm. The saint's face is no larger than a thumbnail, his little bishop's mitre pressed flat by the mould. A harmless thing, perhaps, a market trifle. Yet the servant's eyes fix on it as though you have lifted a crown jewel. You hand it back. His fingers close over it quickly. You saw nothing. It is not a threat. Not quite. More a prayer spoken by someone with no time for saints. You nod, because sometimes wisdom is only the art of becoming boring at speed. The servant vanishes into the crowd and up the castle road. Around you, trade resumes, but differently. The fishwife calls prices too loudly. The dyer fusses with his cord of ribbons. The toll collector pretends to scratch his tablet while watching everyone. You stand in the market with damp cold creeping through your soles and the smell of herbs in your nose. Yesterday, love was a rumour behind a sealed letter. This morning, it hangs in strips of blue silk, hides in pilgrim badges, travels under servants' sleeves, and stains the hands of ordinary tradesmen who only meant to sell pretty things before noon. The dog drops its stolen crust at your feet, as if contributing evidence. Above the square, the castle windows catch a dull glimmer of daylight. Somewhere inside, perhaps a queen wakes from uneasy prayer. Perhaps a knight waits beside an unopened door. Perhaps a king studies every colour in the room and wonders when blue became dangerous. You tuck your hands into your sleeves, listen to the bell fade, and follow the breadwoman toward the upper street, where the market noise thins and the hill begins. The upper street climbs away from the market with the slow cruelty of a hill that has never carried its own basket. You follow the breadwoman past shuttered shops, a smithy already ringing with measured blows, and a row of houses where yesterday's rain still drips from the eaves. The mud grows thinner as the road rises, mixed now with straw, ash, and pale chips of crushed shell laid down to keep noble shoes from vanishing entirely into the earth below you. The market noise softens into a woolly murmur. Above, the castle waits behind its walls, but the bread woman does not lead you straight to its gate. Too many eyes up there by daylight, she says. Better to hear what the monks pretend not to know. So you turn toward the abbey. It sits on a shoulder of the hill. Just beneath the castle's outer shadow, a cluster of stone buildings, cloister walks, tiled roofs, and narrow windows glowing faintly behind horn panes. A little orchard leans beside it, bare-branched and silver with damp. Rooks hop along the wall, making the sort of sounds that suggest they have opinions on theology but poor manners. The bell rings terse as you approach, and the note travels through the wet morning air with a steady, hollow calm. At the abbey gate, a lay brother takes your names, or at least accepts the names you give him, which in a world of uncertain roads is nearly the same thing. He wears a wool habit belted with rope, and his fingers are red with cold. Behind him hangs a board marked with bits of chalk bread owed, ale brewed, candles counted, guests lodged. Monasteries may be houses of prayer, but they are also excellent places for keeping lists. Heaven may be eternal, but barley must still be measured. You're brought into the guest house, where warmth gathers under soot-black rafters. The floor is strewn with rushes, fresher than those in the alehouse, and mixed with dried lavender. A long table stands near the hearth. Wooden bowls wait upside down. On a peg hang damp cloaks, including yours soon enough, dripping beside a pilgrim's patched mantle and a fur-lined cloak too fine for any honest beggar. The dog slips in under the lay brother's arm with such confidence that no one questions it. This is how many small sins enter holy places. A guest-master gives you coarse bread, soft cheese, and a bowl of thin pottage with leeks floating like tired green boats. There is small ale too, safer than water drawn near town drains, and warm enough to comfort your hands. Across the room, a pair of pilgrims compare badges from Canterbury and Rocamadour. One insists his badge once cured a toothache when pressed against the jaw. The other says toothaches often leave when teeth do, which seems less miraculous but more reliable. You sit with your back to the wall and watch the life of the abbey move around you. A novice carries a basket of candles, each one precious, because beeswax burns clean and sweet but costs more than patience. A kitchen boy brings in split logs. An elderly monk counts linen cloths with the deep suspicion of a man who knows towels vanish faster than virtue. Somewhere beyond the guest house, scribes scratch at parchment, copying holy words while trying not to freeze their knuckles stiff. The bread woman speaks quietly with the lay brother near the door. You cannot hear all of it, only pieces queen, packet, blue silk, Sir Alaric, chapel. The brother's eyes flick toward you, then away. He crosses himself with 2 fingers, a quick motion half hidden in his sleeve. Before long, another monk appears. He's narrow, pale, and sharp around the nose, as if carved from old candle wax. His habit is clean but worn thin at the elbows. Ink stains mark the side of his right hand. He looks at the dog first, then at you, as though deciding which of you is less likely to lie. The dog wins easily. "I am Brother Oswin," he says. The bread woman gives you a look that says this is the suspicious monk she promised without ever promising one. Brother Oswin sits opposite you, folds his hands, and says nothing for several breaths. Monks are trained in silence, and some use it like a locked door. You sip your ale. Rain begins again outside, softer now, tapping the roof tiles. The half-burned candle on the table leans in its little iron pricket, flame wavering whenever the door opens. You were at the market, Brother Oswin says. You do not ask how he knows. In towns like this, information walks faster than feet. I was. You saw a badge. You glance at the bread woman. She studies her bread with theatrical innocence. Brother Oswin lowers his voice. St. Valentine is a troublesome saint to carry in a queen's household. Is any saint safe in a queen's household? The monk's mouth twitches, almost a smile, then remembers itself. Few things are safe near crowns. He tells you, not all at once, but in small pieces, as if laying kindling for a careful fire. The abbey holds a relic in its chapel, a little shard of bone set in crystal, said to belong to St. Elian, patron of faithful vows. Brides come to touch the reliquary before marriage. Husbands swear peace before it after quarrels. Widows leave pins, ribbons, and sometimes little wax hearts beneath its stand. Some swear that a vow spoken before St. Elian cannot be broken without the saint troubling the sleeper with dreams. No one can quite agree whether St. Elian ever existed, whether the bone is his, or whether the bone is even human. Brother Oswin admits none of this directly, but his eyebrows do the work for him. Still, people believe, and belief has weight. It bends knees. It fills offering boxes. It makes frightened hearts brave for one more hour. 3 nights ago, he says, 2 figures came after Compline. The guest house seems to grow quieter. The chapel was nearly dark. 1 candle left before the relic. I was in the side passage, checking the ombre lock. We keep the chalice there since a mason's apprentice decided silver vessels might prefer life elsewhere. A practical precaution, very holy. They thought themselves alone. Brother Oswin continues. One wore a cloak with the hood drawn low. The other carried a knight's gloves. You feel the rain, the market, the gatehouse, all draw inward. Did you see their faces? Those who tell the tale never fully agree on faces seen by candlelight, he says, even when the teller is himself. It is an answer and not an answer, very monastic. He looks toward the inner door, beyond which the abbey chapel lies wrapped in stone and prayer. They touch the reliquary together, not as strangers, not as lord and servant, hands together, over the crystal, a vow, perhaps, or a farewell, or a sin asking to be renamed. The bread woman makes the sign against ill luck, thumb tucked beneath fingers. You remember the servant St. Valentine badge, the queen's blue silk, the rider clutching her sealed letter as if it burned. A relic for faithful vows may have blessed the wrong lovers, or blessed them too well, which might be worse. Does the abbot know, you ask? Brother Oswin studies the candle. The abbot knows many things after they can no longer be prevented. Outside, the bell rings again, calling the monks toward prayer. Its sound trembles through the guest-house beams. Brother Oswin rises, gathers his sleeves, and looks at you as if he regrets having spoken, though not enough to take it back. Sleep here tonight, he says. Do not climb to the castle after dark. There are doors in that place that open only to close on someone else. Then he leaves you with the rain, the candle, the dog, and the relic no one trusts entirely. By nightfall you lie beneath a wool blanket in the guest-house loft, listening to the abbey settle. Below, pilgrims cough softly. A mouse worries at something in the wall. Damp cloaks drip near the hearth. The smell of wet wool, lavender rushes, smoke, and old stone wraps around you. You think of 2 hidden hands over crystal, of a queen who may have prayed, of a knight who may have sworn, and of a king perhaps beginning to understand that vows made in chapels do not always belong to marriages. The bell sounds once in the dark. You close your eyes, but the candle's small flame seems to remain behind your lids. bending toward a secret it cannot quite illuminate. Dawn does not so much arrive as gather slowly in the cracks of the guest-house wall. You wake before anyone tells you to, stirred by the monastery bell sounding through the rafters, soft and solemn in the blue-grey cold. For a moment you do not remember where you are. Then the smell returns: damp wool, lavender in the rushes, ashes under the hearth, old stone holding yesterday's rain. Below the loft, a pilgrim coughs into his blanket. Somewhere a monk's sandals slap quietly across the passage. The dog opens one eye, decides holiness remains exhausting, and closes it again. You climb down stiffly, your knees objecting in the private language of travellers. In the guest house, the fire has been coaxed back from embers. A lay brother ladles thin oat gruel into bowls, and another cuts coarse bread with a knife worn narrow from years of work. Breakfast is plain, warm, and received with the gratitude of people who have slept in their clothes. A little salt sits in a horn dish at the table's centre, treated almost like treasure. In winter, every small comfort has rank. Brother Oswin appears near the inner door, ink stains already dark on his fingers. He does not sit, he only watches as you eat, which gives the gruel a faint flavour of examination. The lower castle road is watched, he says at last. The bread woman, who has arrived with no sound at all, tears her bread. Roads are always watched when fools in silk begin writing letters. Brother Oswin does not disagree. There is another way, through the beech wood, then along the old hunting track. It comes out near the outer keep. You look toward the narrow window. Frost whitens the orchard grass. Beyond the wall, the day waits pale and quiet. Is it safe? The monk's eyebrows rise. No road is safe. Some are merely less crowded. This is not comforting, but it has the advantage of sounding true. So you go. The abbey gate opens after prime, and you step into a morning washed clean by rain and sharpened by frost. Mud has hardened at the edges of the ruts. The orchard trees stand black and bare, each twig silvered. Your breath drifts ahead of you. The dog trots out boldly, as if it has personally arranged this expedition and merely permits you to attend. Behind you, the abbey bell gives one final note, and the sound follows you down the lane like a blessing that may or may not have read the full terms of the journey. The bread woman comes only as far as the fork. Castle business thins the bones, she says. I've loaves to sell and a strong wish to keep my head attached to my opinions. She presses a heel of yesterday's bread into your hand, hard but useful, then nods toward the trees. If you hear horns, step off the track. If you see men in the King's Green, look dull. If asked, you're carrying a message about turnips. Am I? See, you are now. With that, she returns toward town, her russet hood shrinking into the morning mist. You stand a moment at the fork, bread in hand, while the dog noses at frozen puddle and sneezes. Then you take the forest road. The beechwood receives you quietly. Frost lies on fallen leaves, turning them pale at the curled edges. Branches meet overhead in a grey lattice. The path is narrow, pressed by hooves, cart wheels, and the feet of people who prefer not to be counted at gates. Now and then you pass old boundary stones half swallowed by moss. Some are marked with crosses, others bear older cuts whose meaning no one can quite agree upon. The lay brother claim they keep travellers from wandering into elf-haunted ground. Brother Oswin said they mark abbey land. The dog shows no respect for either interpretation. You walk slowly because forest tracks punish haste. Brambles tug at your cloak. Frozen mud breaks under your boots with a crusted sigh. Somewhere high above, rooks call to one another. The world smells of wet bark, cold earth, leaf mould, and distant wood smoke. After a while, you find the broken cartwheel. It leans beside the track like a small defeated moon. One spoke split. Iron rim loosened. Nearby, deep ruts show where a cart had slipped and dragged. A few strips of blue thread cling to a thorn bush, dark as bruised sky. You crouch and touch one. It is silk, or close enough to make your fingers careful. A cart has passed this way recently, perhaps the same cart that once stood broken in the market square, or another unlucky cousin in the great family of medieval wheels, which seem designed chiefly to fail far from help. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the silk on the thorn came from a queen's packet, a servant's sleeve, or some merchant's ordinary wares. Yet here, on this hidden road between abbey and keep, it feels less ordinary than it should. The dog sniffs beneath the wheel and pulls out a scrap of green wrapping. Rosemary scent still clings faintly to it. You remember the packet beneath the dyer's stall, blue silk, white linen, something small wrapped in green. You remember St. Valentine's soft pewter face, the rider's sealed satchel, Brother Oswin's doubtful relic. Rumour is no longer floating above ale cups and market stalls. It has come down to earth, snagged on thorns and crushed into mud. A noise reaches you. Hooves. You step quickly behind a thick beech trunk, pulling your cloak close. The dog, for once, behaves like an animal with survival instincts and slips under a fallen branch. Two riders come along the track at an easy pace, wearing dark green cloaks edged with fur. Hunting men, perhaps, or castle guards sent without banners. Their horses steam in the cold. One carries a short bow, the other has a hooded hawk perched on his fist, its little bells muffled with cloth. King wants the outer keep ready by noon, one says. For counsel, for watching. The other rider spits aside. Watching whom? The first does not answer at once. No one can quite agree whether the queen is ill, praying, or being kept from windows. They pass before you hear more, their hoofbeats fading into the trees. You remain still, cheek near cold bark, until the forest settles again. A kept queen, a watched keep, a hidden road with silk on thorns. You continue more carefully now. The old hunting track climbs through thicker wood. Here and there you see small charms tied to branches, red thread, a strip of linen, a bent nail. Woodcutters leave iron near paths to keep troublesome spirits away, or so they say, though iron also serves as a warning that someone owns the trees and may own a temper. At a muddy hollow, you pass a roadside shrine no larger than a cupboard, its painted saint faded by rain. Someone has left 3 hazelnuts, a feather, and a crust of bread. You add a crumb from your own loaf, partly out of respect, partly because refusing forest saints feels unwise when you're carrying a turnip-related identity of uncertain strength. By afternoon, the light thins behind cloud. The track rises from the trees onto a ridge where the wind comes sharp and clean. There, at last, you see the keep. It stands ahead on its rocky mound, not as grand as the castle above town, but older looking, sterner, with square towers and a timber palisade blackened by weather. Smoke lifts from within. Men move along the wall like dark pins. Beyond it, across a fold of land, the greater castle shows its higher roofs and banners, half hidden by mist. The scandal has drawn you from gate to alehouse, market to abbey, forest to stone. Now it waits behind guarded doors. You pause at the edge of the trees as the first torches are lit along the outer works. The dog presses against your leg, warm and solid, in your sleeve. The scent of rosemary from the scrap of green cloth clings faintly to your fingers. The abbey bell is too far away to hear now, but you imagine it sounding anyway, measuring the hour with calm indifference. The day leans toward evening. A guard at the keep gate calls down to know your business. You think of the breadwoman's advice. You lower your head, make your face as harmless as cold gruel, and answer that you carry word about turnips. For one dangerous breath, the guard only stares. Then the gate begins to open. The guard looks down at you from beneath the rim of his iron cap, rainwater still caught in the dents of it, and for a moment you suspect turnips may be a weaker shield than promised. Then he laughs once, short and dry, and waves to the man beside the winch. "Kitchen yard," he calls. "If they are poor turnips, blame the cook, not me." The gate opens with a wooden groan, and you step into the outer keep just as evening gathers fully around the walls. The dog slips in beside you with the boldness of a visiting lord. No one questions it. In a castle, dogs belong everywhere and nowhere, surviving on bones, spilled gravy, and the deep legal uncertainty of affection. Inside the palisade, the yard churns with winter labour. Grooms lead steaming horses toward the stables. A boy carries 2 buckets of water on a yoke, walking carefully because ice has begun to gloss the stones. Kitchen servants hurry between the bakehouse and the great hall, arms full of trenchers, onions, bundles of leeks, and baskets of coarse bread. A scullion crouches by a drain, scraping grease from a pot with such misery that you feel briefly grateful for every bowl you've ever not washed. The smell is overwhelming after the forest road roasting meat, wet horse, rushes, smoke, hot fat, damp wool, and the sour tang of spilled ale. Torches burn in iron brackets. Their light bends in the wind. Somewhere above, a horn sounds from the wall, not a hunt call now, but a signal passed from tower to tower. The keep is not merely preparing supper, it is preparing to be seen. You're drawn with a little stream of servants toward the hall doors, still holding the remains of your turnip story like a pilgrim badge pinned inside your thoughts. No one asks for details. This is a mercy, because you possess no turnips. Instead, a harried steward points you toward a side passage and tells you to carry a basket of trenchers if you want to look useful. So you carry trenchers. This, you learn, is how many people survive near power by holding something heavy and appearing expected. The great hall opens before you in heat and brightness. After the grey wood and frozen track, it feels almost unreal. Painted rafters arch overhead, dark blue and red, with gilded stars flaking from the beams. Tapestries hang along the walls, showing saints, hunts, and one alarming unicorn submitting to capture with an expression of noble inconvenience. Fresh rushes cover the floor, mixed with lavender, rosemary, and sweet flag, though no herb can fully defeat the army of boots. Dogs. Dropped food and winter humanity. Long tables run below the dais. Salt stands near the high table in a covered dish, guarded more carefully than some children. To sit above the salt is honour. To sit below it is to remember your place while chewing. Beeswax candles burn near the lordly seats, clean and golden, while cheaper tallow lights smoke along the lower boards. Servants move between benches with pitchers of ale and wine, careful not to trip over feet, dogs, stools, or political tension. Which occupies more space than furniture? You set down the trenchers where a cook directs you. The dog vanishes beneath the lower table and almost immediately finds a bone, proving again that fortune favours the shameless. The feast begins not with comfort, but with order. Pages carry ewers and basins so noble hands may be washed before eating. A clerk murmurs names. A chaplain blesses the food in a voice smooth with practice. Some swear that if a candle goes out during the blessing, a quarrel will follow before dawn. No one can quite agree whether this is true. but every servant watches the flames anyway. Tonight, every candle holds. Then the king enters. He's broader than you expected, not young, not old, with a beard trimmed close and a scar pale across one cheek. His cloak is lined with dark fur. A narrow circlet sits on his brow, less like decoration than a warning made of gold. He walks as a man accustomed to rooms changing shape around him. Conversation lowers, benches shift, heads bow. You bow too, because your neck is fond of remaining attached. Queen Isolde follows. She wears blue, not bright summer blue, but deep winter blue, the shade of evening seen through horn glass. White linen frames her face. A girdle of silver plaques rests at her waist. She moves slowly, not weakly, but with the careful grace of someone aware that every eye is a hook. Her face is calm, too calm, perhaps. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such calm is innocence, courage, exhaustion, or courtly armour polished by long use. Behind and slightly to the side comes Sir Alaric. You know him before anyone names him. The hall does. His tunic is dark, his belt plain for a man of rank, but 3 silver hawks gleam on the clasp at his shoulder. He is tall, though not absurdly so, and a road weather clings to him even indoors. He bows to the king first, then to the queen. Only a heartbeat, only the lowering of his eyes and the rise of hers. But the hall feels it. A glance can be quieter than a drop spoon and louder than a trumpet. You stand near the serving board with a stack of wooden bowls and feel the room lean without moving. The king does not turn his head, yet his hand, resting near the salt, closes once. The courses come, pottage rich with marrow, roast capons with pepper for those high enough to deserve spice, smoked fish for the lower tables, thick slices of bread used as trenchers, soaking gravy until they're passed to servants or beggars at the end, because even leftovers have a hierarchy. A peacock is carried in with its feathers restored for show, which impresses everyone except the peacock, who is past caring. The hall applauds politely, as if pretending that putting feathers back on dinner is not a strange habit. Minstrels play near the screen passage. A harp, a small drum, a pipe sweet as bird call. The music softens the edges of talk, but cannot cover all of it. You hear scraps as you move with pitchers and platters. The northern lords have sent no answer. Her grace prayed late again. Alaric rides with the king tomorrow, or away from him. Those who tell the tale never fully agree where suspicion first becomes certainty. Some say it happens when the queen refuses a dish the king offers. Others say it happens when Sir Alaric drinks only after she drinks. An old courtesy, perhaps, or a private vow wearing public clothes. You see both moments and trust neither completely. In candlelight, meanings breed like mice. The king speaks warmly to Alaric during the second course, asking about the forest track, the outer watch, the readiness of the men. His voice carries just far enough. Alaric answers with respect. The queen looks down at her trencher. A ruby ring flashes on the king's hand when he lifts his cup. To loyalty, the king says. All cups rise. You raise yours too, though it contains more foam than ale. The queen lifts her cup. Sir Alaric lifts his. Their eyes do not meet this time, and somehow that is worse. A jester makes a mild joke about husbands who trust hunting hounds more than wives. The lower tables laugh too loudly. The high table smiles too little. The jester bows and wisely retreats towards safer material involving an abbot, a goose, and a very confused pair of shoes. As the feast lengthens, warmth thickens the hall. Snow begins outside, faint against the dark windows. Servants bring more candles. One near the queen's place burns low. half spent, its wax folding over itself like a tired petal. You remember the gatehouse candle, the abbey candle, each small flame bending near a secret. Brother Oswin's doubtful relic seems very far away now, and yet you feel its crystal shadow in this room where vows are eaten beside salt and suspicion. At last the king rises. The hall rises with him, benches scraping. He offers his hand to the queen. She places her fingers upon it. Sir Alaric bows as they pass. The king pauses beside him, smiles, and rests his free hand on the knight's shoulder. It is an affectionate gesture. It is also possession, warning, theatre, and perhaps farewell. No one breathes too loudly. Then the royal pair withdraws beneath the painted rafters, and the hall exhales in pieces. Cups return to mouths. Dogs creep from under tables. Servants begin gathering soaked trenchers and bones. The music starts again, softer now, as snow taps the shutters. You stand in the heat and smoke, your hands smelling of ale and bread, and understand that the love triangle has shown itself at last not in a kiss, not in a confession, but in glances, colours, cups, and the king's hand resting gently on another man's shoulder. The dog returns to your boot with the stolen bone. Outside, the watchfires brighten in the falling snow. The hall empties by degrees, as all great rooms do after feasting. The king's men withdraw with careful faces. Then servants descend upon the tables like a humble army armed with bowls, cloths, and tired patience. You help carry away trenchers heavy with gravy, because no one near a kitchen remains unemployed for long unless they are dead, royal, or exceptionally good at hiding. Snow thickens against the shutters. Your dog has taken a bone with the solemn commitment of a baron defending a border, and a scullion keeps it near the hearth after the animal inspects his shoes. You are sent through the screen's passage with folded linen. Upper chamber, says the housekeeper, a square woman with iron keys at her belt, and keep your eyes on your feet. This is excellent advice and, naturally, impossible to follow. You climb a narrow stair lit by beeswax candles. The stone sweats cold through the mortar. Somewhere below, the heart begins again, soft and distant. In a castle, stairs seem designed by people who believe ankles are morally weak and should be tested. At the landing, 2 guards stand beside an oak door strapped with iron. They know the bundle and let you pass into a quieter world. The Queen's outer chamber is warm, though not as warm as the hall. Tapestries cover the walls, showing gardens that have never known mud. Fresh rushes lie on the floor, mixed with lavender and a southernwood, a bitter herb some swear keeps moths from gowns and sorrow from pillows. No one can quite agree whether it does anything for sorrow, but the chamber smells cleaner than most of the kingdom. Ladies sit near the fire with sewing in their laps. One mends a sleeve with blue silk, another works silver stitches into white linen. A maid warms stones for the Queen's bed, because even queens dislike sheets that feel like pond water. On a table stand bone combs, pins, and a polished metal mirror. You lower the linen where the housekeeper points. You mean to leave at once. Truly, you do. But the door behind you closes, and the room continues around you, with the drowsy confidence of women accustomed to being watched by servants, and unseen by men who think politics happens only in halls. The king smiled too long, one lady says softly. At Sir Alaric. At everyone, that is worse. A maid bites thread between her teeth. My aunt says when a man smiles with only his mouth, keep salt in your pocket. A small ripple of laughter passes through the chamber, quiet as the fire shifting. Then Queen Isolde enters from the inner room. Without the height of the dais, she seems less like a figure from a painted wall and more like a tired woman in a heavy gown. The blue wool falls richly around her, but one sleeve has been unfastened. Her hair, uncovered except for a loose veil, is dark and braided with narrow ribbon. Candlelight softens her face and deepens the shadows beneath her eyes. You bow over the linen and keep still. "Leave the white cloth," she says. Her voice is gentle, low, controlled by long practice. Before the housekeeper can send you out, another maid arrives with a basin of warm water scented faintly with rosemary. The rhythm of the chamber folds you into it. You become part of the wall, the rushes, the linen, present only because useful people are often treated like furniture until they inconveniently remember things. The queen sits near the fire. One lady unpins her veil, another loosens the girdle at her waist. These ordinary acts feel more intimate than the feast. Crowns may be public, but tired shoulders are not. You watch hands move with practiced care, unlacing, folding, smoothing, setting jewels into a small casket. Outside the window, snow whispers against the shutters. On the table beside the queen lies a small packet. Blue silk, white linen, green wrapping. Your breath pauses before you can stop it. The queen's gaze moves, not sharply, but enough. For an instant, you think she knows that you saw the St. Valentine badge in the market, the silk on the forest thorn, the rider at the gate. Perhaps that is the cruelest part of royal secrecy. It is performed in rooms full of people required to pretend blindness. One of the younger maids touches the packet. "Shall I burn it, my lady?" The room stills. Queen Isolde looks into the fire. Not yet. No one asks more. Questions in chambers are like sparks in dry thatch. A wise servant lets them die. A grey-templed lady lifts a charm from a cord around her neck, a tiny silver hand, palm outward. "For sleep," she says. "My mother swore it turns aside restless dreams." The queen smiles faintly. "Your mother swore many things. Some swear a silver hand protects women from envy, wandering spirits, and unkind glances. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such things protect the wearer or simply remind her that someone wishes her protected. Queen Isolde closes her fingers around it as if the difference does not matter tonight. The women return to their sewing, but the talk grows thinner. You notice how carefully they care for her, and how little any of it frees her. They can warm her sheets, comb her hair, mend her sleeves, guard her jewels, scent her water, and still they cannot open a door she's not permitted to pass. A queen's chamber is soft compared with a prison, but softness can be another kind of lock. Then, at the outer door, a page appears. He's young enough to fear everyone equally. He bows low and says, "Sir Alaric asks whether Her Grace requires the chapel guard changed before matins." That is all. A plain message, a guard matter, nothing that could not be spoken before saints and stewards. Yet the Queen's face changes by almost nothing. Almost nothing is enough. Her hand closes around the silver charm. One lady looks down at her needle. The maid with the basin stares into the steam. The housekeeper's keys fall silent. Queen Isolde says, "Tell Sir Alaric that all is as it must be." The page bows and leaves. No love word has been spoken. No hand has touched. No vow has been made in this room. Still, the air has altered, warmed by grief and danger until forbidden affection seems, for one fragile moment, less like wickedness than shelter offered in a storm. You think of arranged marriages, blue ribbons, doubtful relics, and the king's hand on Alaric's shoulder. You think of someone being kind at the wrong time. The queen opens her hand and looks at the silver charm. "It is late," she says. The housekeeper turns to you at once. "Go." You go down the cold stair, past the guards, back toward the fading noise of the hall. Behind you, the Queen's chamber closes around its candles, sewing, secrets, and careful silence. Near the hearth below, the dog lifts its head as you return, bone between its paws, as if asking whether humans have finally learned sense. Not tonight, you think. Not tonight. The page's footsteps fade above you, and for a little while the castle seems to settle into ordinary night. Ordinary, at least, for a place where every door has a guard, every candle has a cost, and every whisper may carry a dagger under its cloak. You return to the lower passage, where servants scrub platters with sand and hot water. The Queen's words follow too, all is as it must be. That is the sort of sentence people use when nothing is as it ought to be. Near the hearth, the dog sleeps with the peace of a creature uninvolved in dynastic unease. A scullion offers you bread dipped in onion broth, and you eat beside a barrel of turnips, which gives your invented errand sudden insulting legitimacy. Above, the Queen sits with her silver hand charm. Elsewhere, Sir Alaric waits beneath the burden a loyal man carries when loyalty divides itself. The chapel bell sounds close to midnight. A maid passes with a covered lantern and a folded cloth, the same maid who brought rosemary water to the Queen's chamber. Behind her walks the young page, carrying candles. He glances once toward the stair. You should stay by the hearth. You should let noble sorrow climb its own stairs. You should remember that the bread woman chose loaves over courtly disaster for a reason. Instead, you follow at a distance. The passage narrows toward the chapel. Stone walls press close, sweating cold. Your boots make almost no sound on the rush-strewn floor. In an alcove, a lamp burns before a painted St. Michael, whose sword is nearly as tall as his body, and whose expression suggests he's heard enough excuses. The maid and page slip through a side door. You wait behind a tapestry showing a winter hunt, and there you find a narrow squint in the wall, angled toward the altar. Perhaps it was made for guards. Perhaps for sick nobles who wish to hear Mass unseen. No one can quite agree why castles have so many small holes in useful places, though every gossip in history has been grateful. Through the opening you see the chapel. It is small compared with the abbey church, but rich in the way royal spaces often are. Candles burn on iron stands. The altar cloth is white, embroidered with red crosses. Beside it rests a gilded reliquary shaped like a tower. The chaplain claims it holds a thread from the cloak of St. Agnes. Some swear it protects women trapped in unhappy vows. Others whisper it is merely old wool with excellent connections. The page kneels, crosses himself and backs away. Then the side door closes, and the chapel is empty except for flame and shadow. Sir Alaric enters first. He wears no armour now, only a dark cloak over a plain tunic. Without the hall around him, without the king's hand on his shoulder and every lord measuring him, he looks less like a song and more like a weary man who has walked too far into his own heart. He kneels before the altar. His gloved hands rest together, still as carved wood. Another door opens. Queen Isolde comes alone. She wears a mantle over a pale gown, her hair hidden beneath a veil. In her hand she carries the blue and white packet. For a moment she stands just inside the door, and candlelight touches her face so softly that she seems less crowned than haunted. Alaric rises, but does not go to her. That restraint tells you more than any embrace might have done. "My lady," he says. "Sir Alaric." Such careful names as such dangerous distance. She lays the packet on the altar step. From within she takes the St. Valentine badge, a sprig of rosemary gone dark at the tips, and a narrow strip of cloth tied in a knot. A love knot, perhaps, a vow token. or only linen made powerful by fear? Even now, it is hard to tell whether objects hold meaning because saints notice them, or because human hands cannot bear emptiness. Alaric removes one glove. The Queen does the same. Their bare hands rest side by side on the altar step, separated by the little pewter saint. The sight is so quiet that your throat tightens. This is not the blaze of ballads. It is two cold hands near candle flame. I must ride before dawn, he says. I know. With the king. With the king watching you. A candle gutters hard, though no wind reaches the chapel. Some swear that a candle bending toward the altar means a prayer is accepted. Others say it means a bad wick, which is less poetic but often correct. Tonight, no one would be brave enough to choose. Alaric looks toward the reliquary. If I go, I leave you among knives. If you stay, you become one. There is no sob, no dramatic reaching. Only the careful stillness of people who've imagined every foolish escape and found each road guarded by duty, law, bloodline, weather, and the inconvenient existence of other people. The Queen touches the rosemary. My marriage is a vow, she says. My crown is a vow. My name is a vow. And yet I have never known whether God hears vows made by fathers, councils, and frightened girls. Those who tell the tale never fully agree what vow they make then. Some say they swear never to speak of love again. Some say they promise to meet if war takes the king north. Others say they promise only to pray for one another until the last candle burns out. You hear words, but not enough to trap them. Faithful, mercy, remember, forgive. Then their hands touch over the little badge. Only briefly. The chapel seems to hold its breath. Above the altar, the painted saint gazes down with calm wooden sorrow. The candle steadies. From somewhere in the wall comes the tiny scrape of a mouse, because even sacred moments in the Middle Ages must share space with practical rodents. Queen Isolde draws back first. She ties the wax-stained cloth around the rosemary and sets both beside the reliquary. Let this be buried in prayer, she whispers. A sound comes from the outer passage. Both turn. You freeze behind the tapestry. Footsteps approach. Slow and heavy, the chapel door opens, and torchlight spills across the floor. It is not the king. It is Brother Oswin, ink-stained, pale, and deeply displeased to find the world behaving exactly as he feared. He stands with a small book under one arm. My lady, he says, Sir Alaric. No one speaks. Brother Oswin's gaze moves to the rosemary beside the relic, then to their ungloved hands. He sighs like a man watching wax drip onto a manuscript he's just finished copying. Some vows, he says, are prayers, some are wounds. Heaven must judge which this is. The Queen lowers her eyes. Sir Alaric closes his fist around his glove. And you, hidden behind painted hunters and a judgmental stag, understand that devotion and betrayal may sometimes kneel so closely together that even a saint's relic cannot easily tell them apart. Brother Oswin does not shout. That is almost worse. He stands in the chapel doorway with his little book under one arm, torchlight trembling behind him, and the silence that follows seems thick enough to gather in your sleeves. Queen Isolde lowers her bare hand. Sir Alaric draws his glove back on with slow care. The rosemary, the knot of cloth, and the little St. Valentine badge remain beside the reliquary like three tiny witnesses that cannot be bribed, threatened, or sensibly explained. You stay behind the tapestry, barely breathing. The painted hunters beside you continue their frozen chase through embroidered trees, more discreet than any living courtier. Brother Oswin bows, not deeply. The night is cold, he says, and stone carries sound. No one can quite agree whether he means this as warning, mercy, or accusation. Perhaps all three fit comfortably in a monk's mouth. The Queen looks at him, and for a moment the crownless woman in the pale gown seems smaller than the chamber built to honour her. Then carry none of it farther, she says. The monk's face does not soften, but his voice does. My lady, silence is not always safety. Sometimes it is only a locked chest in a burning room. Sir Alaric takes one step forward. Brother. Sir, Oswin says, with the weary patience of a man addressing a sword that thinks itself a person. The Queen raises her hand slightly and Alaric stops. There is the whole court in that small motion rank. Love, restraint, danger, and the bitter craft of not ruining one another too quickly. Brother Oswin gathers the rosemary and badge in a folded altar cloth. He does not take them for himself. He places them beneath the reliquary, hidden from casual sight, as if the saint may guard what people cannot bear to name. Go separately, he says. The Queen leaves first, through the side door, her maid waiting beyond with a lowered lantern. Sir Alaric remains until her footsteps are gone. Then he bows toward the altar, toward the doubtful relic, toward the monk, perhaps toward the ruin itself, and walks out by the outer passage. Only when the chapel is empty does Brother Oswin turn his head toward the tapestry. You may come out, he says. Your heart drops somewhere near your knees. You step from behind the woven winter hunt with all the dignity of a person caught eavesdropping on royalty while pretending to be part of the furniture. Brother Oswin looks you over. Turnips, he says. Yes, you answer, because at this point the lie has become a profession. He sighs, then pray they remain cheaper than treason. By morning you understand what he means. The castle wakes not into peace, but into accounts. That is how great trouble often reaches common folk, not first as blood, not first as battle, but as lists. A steward with red eyes sits in the lower hall, scratching names onto a wax tablet. Extra guards are ordered for the gates. Extra oats are demanded for horses. Extra candles are counted for chambers where men will sit late and call suspicion counsel. Every extra thing must come from somewhere. And somewhere usually means people who did not attend the feast, write the letter, or touch hands over a pewter saint. You're sent with a kitchen boy down toward the manor court at the edge of town, carrying a note sealed with the steward's mark. The dog follows, having apparently decided that legal proceedings offer possibilities for crumbs. Snow has softened into sleet. The road is churned by hooves, and your boots find every cold puddle as if guided by malice. Near the market cross, the bread woman stands beneath her awning, selling loaves with the grave expression of someone watching weather turn into taxes. Court today, she says when you pass. That means justice, fees, and men in hats explaining hunger. The manor court sits in a timbered hall beside the Reeves house. Its roof sags a little, but not enough to excuse anyone from attending. Villagers crowd inside, smelling of wet wool, smoke, sheep, and winter storage. Rushes cover the floor, though they're old and sour at the edges. At the far end, the steward's clerk lays out parchment, ink, and a knife for scraping mistakes. Mistakes on parchment can be scraped. Mistakes in noble bedrooms are harder. The Reeve calls names. A miller owes a fine because his measure is light. A widow petitions for the right to keep her husband's strip of land until her son is grown. Two brothers argue over a pig, and the pig, tied outside, contributes occasional opinions. A girl is accused of gathering fallen branches from the Lord's wood without leave. She stands with red hands tucked in her apron, while her mother mutters that cold does not ask permission before entering a cottage. Then the steward's note is read. because the castle requires stronger watch. Each household must provide either coin, grain, or labour, because horses must be kept ready. Hay is demanded earlier than expected, because messengers may ride at night. Roadwork must be done near the western gate, because the king's peace must be preserved. No gatherings after dusk are allowed without leave. No one says Queen Isolde. No one says Sir Alaric. No one says love. Yet the whole hall hears those names beneath every sentence. A potter lifts both hands. My kiln cracked in the frost. I have no coin till Easter. Then labour, says the clerk. My eldest is fevered. Then your second. Here's 8. The clerk dips his pen. Then your brother. My brother has 1 leg. Then he may watch geese. There is a small, exhausted laugh, quickly swallowed. Medieval humour often survives by being too tired to die. You stand near the wall with the kitchen boy and feel the shape of the thing. A queen's lonely chamber becomes a guard at a gate. A knight's hidden vow becomes a cartload of hay. A king's suspicion becomes a widow's last hen. A boy filling ruts in sleet. A miller paying twice. A village forbidden to gather after dark. Royal desire travels downward like rain through a thatch roof. It begins far above, but it is the sleeper below who wakes wet. An old woman near you ties a bit of black thread around her thumb. She sees you looking and whispers, for keeping trouble from the house. Does it work? Some swear it does, she says, and when it fails, you still have thread. This seems among the wiser remedies you have heard. By noon, fines are counted in coins, eggs, barley, and promises no one trusts. The widow is granted her strip of land, but only after paying a fee in spring. The girl who gathered branches must bring 3 days' labour to the lord's hedges. The brothers with the pig are ordered to share it, which satisfies no one except possibly the pig, who has gained time. Outside, sleet taps the muddy yard. The broken cartwheel from the forest road has been brought to the smithy, and you see it leaning there, rim bent, spokes dark with wet. The smith says he can mend it for a price. Everything can be mended for a price, except the things people most need mended. As the court empties, the bread woman presses a small loaf into the fevered boy's mother's hand and pretends it is stale. Brother Oswin appears at the hall door, hood up, face pale in the damp. He does not speak to you, but his eyes move once toward the castle hill. You know what waits their candles, guarded doors, a king measuring smiles, a queen behind soft locks, a knight too loyal in too many directions, and a relic holding rosemary in the dark. The dog noses your palm for bread. The bell rings somewhere above town, steady as ever, marking the hour without caring who pays for it. You step back into the mud and understand, more clearly than before, that when royal hearts tremble, the whole kingdom shivers. By the time the manor court empties, the sleet has softened again into mist, and the whole town seems to breathe through wet wool. You leave the timbered hall with the smell of damp rushes still in your cloak, and the sound of the clerk's pen still scratching somewhere inside your skull. Above the roofs, the castle waits in its grey crown of weather. Smoke rises from chimneys, flattened by low cloud, and the bell from the abbey marks the hour with its usual calm, as if bells have wisely chosen never to involve themselves in human foolishness. A summons runs through the streets before midday. The king rides to hunt. At first this sounds almost ordinary. King's hunt, lord's hunt, men with horses, hawks, horns, dogs, and too much winter restlessness often decide that the forest requires inspection by spear. But the town receives the news uneasily. No one says it aloud, yet everyone understands this is not only a hunt, this is movement, display, testing. A king can ask questions beside a hearth, but he can learn different things in the saddle when men are cold, tired, and less guarded. You are drawn into the work by accident, which is how most of your courtly career has unfolded. A groom at the lower yard sees you carrying the steward's empty pouch back toward the keep, and decides you look like someone who can hold reins. This is not praise. It is merely need-wearing boots. Soon you stand in the castle yard among horses stamping steam into the air. Hounds strain at leashes, long-muzzled and eager, their breath white, their paws muddy. Huntsmen in green cloaks check straps and spears. Pages bring gloves, saddle-cloths, flasks, and little leather bags of salt for the horses. One old groom rubs a horse's legs with warmed cloths, muttering that cold damp settles into joints like an unpaid guest. Some swear a chestnut carried in the pocket protects against rheumatism. No one can quite agree whether it helps the groom or only comforts the chestnut, but several men carry them all the same. The dog that has adopted you watches the royal hounds with offended dignity from beneath a cart. It clearly considers them loud, overfed professionals. The king comes down in a dark cloak edged with fur. He looks well rested, which is to say he has the face of a man who has slept little and refuses to admit it. Sir Alaric follows with 2 other knights. He wears riding leathers and a plain sword, his silver hawks half hidden beneath his cloak. If he sees you near the stable wall, he gives no sign. That seems wise. Recognition, in this place, is becoming a dangerous luxury. Queen Isolde does not ride. Instead, she appears at an upper window for only a moment, pale behind hornglass. Perhaps she watches the hunt depart. Perhaps she watches one rider in particular. Perhaps she watches the king watching everyone else. Even now, it is hard to tell whether a face glimpsed through winter glass belongs to sorrow, fear, or simple cold. The horn sounds. The yard stirs into motion. Horses clatter through the gate. Hounds pour ahead like a living river. You're given a small, querned or stubborn horse and told to ride behind the baggage men, carrying spare straps and a rolled cloak. The animal is broad, shaggy, and unimpressed by your existence. This feels mutual but manageable. You ride out beneath the keep gate and onto the hunting road, where the fields lie silvered with frost. Peasants pause from hedgework to bough as the king passes. A boy stands ankle-deep in mud, holding a bundle of cut thorn, and stares at the nobles as if watching saints ride through a ditch. His mother pulls him back quickly. Saints rarely notice children. Kings sometimes do. The forest receives the party in layers, first bare hedges, then scattered oaks, then deeper beech and ash, their branches black against the mist. The ground is soft beneath old leaves. Hooves make a muffled, sucking rhythm. The hounds cast about, noses low. Horn calls pass forward and back, bright and lonely. Yet today each note seems to carry warning under its music. The king rides beside Sir Alaric at first. They speak like companions. Anyone watching from a distance might think them easy together, king and trusted knight in the old familiar pleasure of the hunt. Yet you ride near enough, when the track narrows, to hear pieces. "You know these woods well," the king says. "Well enough, my lord. You rode them recently, with the outer watch. The old abbey track." A pause. "When needed." The king nods. Many things seem needed lately. A horn sounds ahead, saving no one and everyone. The hounds break toward a hollow, and the party follows. Branches whip at cloaks. Your little horse chooses the deepest mud with religious devotion. Somewhere behind you, a baggage man curses softly and then crosses himself. Perhaps worried St. Hubert, patron of hunters, dislikes accurate language. They find not a stag at first, but tracks cloven marks near the stream, fresh enough to excite the huntsman. Men dismount to study them. One claims the beast is large, another says it is lame, a third says it crossed at dawn. No one can quite agree, which seems to be the way of tracks, relics, vows, and every other mark left in a world too wet to keep its evidence clean. While they argue, the king steps aside with Alaric near a fallen oak, mist beads in both their hair. You hold your horse still behind a thorn brake, close enough to see the king's hand rest on the hilt of his hunting knife, not gripping, only resting. "You have served me long," the king says. "All my strength is yours." "All." Sir Alaric looks at him then, not boldly, not guiltily, simply directly, which may be the most dangerous answer available. "My sword, my counsel, my life." The king smiles faintly. "You choose your words like a priest counting coins, and your grace hears them like a judge. For one breath the forest grows very still, then a hound gives tongue, sharp and eager, and the hunt surges forward. The moment breaks, but not cleanly. It leaves splinters. You ride on. The mist thickens, softening distance until riders appear and vanish like figures painted on damp parchment. A hawk circles overhead, only a dark hook against cloud. At a small roadside shrine beneath an oak, someone has tied blue thread around a twig. You see it as you pass, fluttering lightly in the wind. Perhaps it's only a charm left by a woodcutter's wife. Perhaps it is another scrap of the hidden language that has begun to follow you. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the queen's colour truly appears everywhere that week, or whether frightened eyes simply begin finding blue in every shadow. The stag finally rises from a stand of hazel. It is sudden, but not violent in the way songs make it. A brown shape, breath steaming, hooves striking wet leaves, antlers pale as bone through mist. The hounds cry out, horns answer, riders lean forward, the king's horse leaps after it, and Sir Alaric follows close. You remain with the rear riders, heart beating harder than the pace deserves. Through the trees, you glimpse the king and Alaric riding almost side by side, vanishing, reappearing, one dark cloak, one silver flash, the distance between them narrowing and widening with the path. Every horn call seems less like sport now, and more like a question blown across the woods. At the stream crossing, this stag escapes into thicker cover. The hounds lose the scent among wet stones. Men gather, laughing too loudly, breathing hard, shaking rain from their gloves. A servant offers the king spiced wine from a flask. He drinks, then passes it to Alaric. Alaric accepts. Their fingers do not touch. Somehow everyone notices. The king looks toward the mist where the stag vanished. "A clever beast," he says. "It knows when it is hunted." So Alaric lowers the flask. Most living things do, in time. The king turns his horse, then let us see which way it runs. The horn sounds again, long and cold. You tighten your cloak, feel wet wool against your throat, and follow as the hunt moves deeper into the winter trees. The hunt does not end with triumph. It thins, like mist, into damp laughter, sore legs, and men pretending they are not chilled through. The stag escapes somewhere beyond the stream, leaving only churned leaves, confused hounds, and a king whose smile has become difficult to read. By late afternoon, the party turns back toward the road, horses blowing steam, cloaks darkened by wet branches. Sir Alaric rides a little behind the king now, not far enough to seem dismissed, not near enough to seem trusted. You follow with the baggage men, your little horse picking its way through mud with the careful misery of a monk crossing a tavern. The dog appears from nowhere near the edge of the wood, trots beside you as if it has completed its own private hunt, and carries in its mouth a stick shaped vaguely like a royal decree, though more useful. At the fork below the abbey, Brother Oswin is waiting. He stands beneath a bare hawthorn, hood pulled low, looking less like a holy man than a judgment left out in the rain. When the royal riders pass, he bows. The king gives him only a glance. Sir Alaric looks straight ahead. Then the hunt continues toward the keep, horns silent now, and Brother Oswin steps into the road before you. "You," he says. This is not a warm greeting, but by now you accept it as friendship in monkish dialect. He takes your bridle and leads your horse toward the abbey lane. There is ink that needs witnessing. You consider explaining that you're not trained in ink. Then you remember the chapel, the rosemary beneath the reliquary, and the way his voice sounded when he said stone carries sound. You dismount and follow. The abbey is already turning inward for evening. Smoke rises from the kitchen roof. A lay brother hauls water from the well in wooden buckets, shoulders bent beneath the yoke. In the bakehouse, round loaves cool on boards, their crusts cracking softly. The bell rings none, then fades into the stone as if swallowed. Guests in the yard shake mud from their hems. A woman with swollen fingers rubs them with goose fat and rue, because some swear this eases winter aches. No one can quite agree whether the goose fat heals the joints or merely makes misery slippery. Brother Oswin leads you not to the guest house, but through a narrow passage behind the cloister. The air grows colder. Your boots sound on worn flags. Through one arch you glimpse monks moving in single file, dark shapes in a pale walk, their breath faint in the dusk. At last he opens a low oak door with an iron key and brings you into the archive. The room smells of parchment, dust, wax, ink, dry herbs, and old secrets stored too close together. Shelves line the walls, chests sit beneath them, bound with iron straps. Rolls of parchment rest in pigeonholes. A slanted desk stands near a small window, where the last grey light gathers. 2 candles burn there, one new, one half burned and leaning, its wax pooled like frozen milk. You think of the gatehouse candle, the alehouse candle, the Queen's chamber candle, every small flame you've seen bending near the same hidden storm. A scribe sits at the desk. He is older than Brother Oswin, broad-faced, with ink on both thumbs and a nose reddened by cold. His name is Brother Matthew, and he looks at you only long enough to decide that you are neither literate enough to steal a charter, nor important enough to stop him. This may be fair. On the desk lies a folded letter. Its seal has been broken. You recognize the red wax before you understand why. The rider at the gate, Martin of Ashford, soaked and shaking, clutching the satchel as if it contained a coal from a burning house. The Queen's seal, or what everyone swore was the Queen's seal. Now the wax lies cracked beside the fold, pressed with a lily shape made soft by handling. Brother Oswin closes the door. This was brought to the abbot after the hunt left. By whom? A frightened boy with castle mud on his shoes. Brother Matthew snorts. All boys are frightened when carrying letters. It proves nothing. The scribe lifts a magnifying glass set in horn, one of those delicate tools used by men who spend their lives arguing with handwriting. Beside him lie scraps of parchment covered with copied letters, loops, strokes, royal names, household marks. He has been comparing them. This, you realize, is not merely reading. It is a kind of hunting too, but for lies. The letter itself is short. Brother Oswin does not hand it to you, but he reads portions aloud in a low voice. It speaks of meeting, of danger, of the king's suspicion, of a promise made before holy witness. It names Sir Alaric. It bears, at the bottom, the queen's private sign. If true, it is enough to ruin her. If false, it is enough to ruin her anyway. Brother Matthew taps the parchment. The hand is close. Close, Oswin asks. Too close. The scribe leans back. A natural hand forgets itself. A copied hand remembers too hard. You look from one monk to the other. He points with his knife, not cutting, only indicating. Here, the Queen's clerk makes this stroke swiftly with a thin tail. This writer slows before the curve. See the hesitation. And here, the word mercy. Too neat. Anyone in fear writes mercy like a drowning man reaches for a branch. You see lines, hooks, shadows of meaning. To you it is a field of black marks. To Brother Matthew it is footprints in snow. Some swear a forged letter can be unmasked by holding it above warm bread, because hidden powders and false inks will sweat differently. Others say lemon juice, milk, or even onion water may reveal secret writing near a candle flame. Brother Matthew dismisses most of this as kitchen sorcery, then admits that warm bread has, on occasion, proved useful. Medieval learning, you're finding, often walks arm in arm with supper. He lifts the cracked seal. Wax is wrong too. It shows her lily, you say. He grunts. A lily can be stolen from a ring, a household stamp, a careless maid, a softened impression. This wax has lamp black mixed in it. Her Grace's private letters use red wax with a trace of vermilion, brighter, costlier. Brother Oswin folds his hands inside his sleeves. Then it is forged. Brother Matthew looks at the letter and his face grows less certain. Perhaps. There is that word again, the kingdom's truest coin. Perhaps the Queen wrote in a shaken hand. Perhaps someone copied her sign. Perhaps Sir Alaric is being trapped. Perhaps the king has already seen another letter. Perhaps the letter is not meant to prove guilt, only to make doubt impossible to unthink. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the danger lies in the ink, the wax, or the hunger of powerful people for evidence that flatters their fear. Outside, the abbey bell calls vespers. The sound enters the archive faintly, passing through stone, parchment, and the narrow chambers of your chest. Brother Oswin reaches into his sleeve and draws out the little St. Valentine badge from the chapel. Beside it he lays the rosemary, now dry and dark. The letter mentions a holy witness, he says, not St. Agnes, not this abbey. It is written by someone who heard the shape of a secret, but not its heart. Brother Matthew's eyes sharpen, then someone watched without understanding. You say nothing. The half-burned candle leans lower. Wax slips down its side. Brother Oswin looks at you, and for once his suspicion is not aimed like a blade, but shared like a burden. Tonight, he says, this must remain here. Brother Matthew folds the letter between two clean sheets, then places it in a small chest. The iron key turns with a sound that feels final, and not final enough. You leave the archive as the monks begin to chant beyond the cloister. Their voices rise soft and low, weaving through the evening like smoke. In the guest house, pottage waits, thin and warm. Wet cloaks hang near the hearth. The dog curls beneath the bench, still holding its ridiculous stick. Above the abbey, the castle windows brighten one by one. Somewhere inside those walls, a king may be reading lies as truth, or truth as betrayal, or betrayal as permission. The ink has not spoken clearly, the wax has not saved anyone, and the night, patient as a scribe, lowers itself over the hill. You leave the abbey guest house after the last spoonful of thin pottage has warmed more hope than stomach, and the night meets you with a clean, bitter cold. The rain has stopped. Frost takes its place, whitening the edges of cart ruts and the tops of wall stones. Above you, the castle is no longer a dark shape watching the town from sleep. It is awake in every window. Watchfires burn along the outer works. They make a broken crown of orange points against the black hill, each flame bending in the wind, each guarded by men who would rather be anywhere warmer and less historical. Smoke lifts and drifts across the moon. From the abbey yard, you see figures moving on the walls, small and restless. A horn sounds once from the keep, and then another answers from the town gate. Not alarm, not yet. More like a kingdom clearing its throat before saying something regrettable. Brother Oswin walks beside you with his hood up and his hands tucked inside his sleeves. He has said little since the archive, where the forged letter lies locked in its chest beneath Brother Matthew's suspicious ink-stained care. The dog pads at your heel, stick abandoned at last for the more serious work of sniffing frost. At the abbey gate, a lay brother presses a lump of coarse bread into your palm and tells you to keep it near your heart if the cold worsens. You're fairly certain he means eat it, though some swear bread blessed after Vespers can protect a traveller from sudden fear, bad dreams, and the sort of night watch where nobody explains the rules until after you've broken them. No one can quite agree whether holy bread is stronger outside the stomach or in it. You choose a compromise and take one careful bite. Brother Oswin leads you up the narrow lane toward the outer keep. The abbot has sent word to the castle steward. He says, not to the king, not yet. About the letter. About doubt. This seems very small armour against royal anger, but perhaps doubt, in the right hands, can be heavier than mail. The keep gate stands open only enough to admit known faces. Men crowd near it, guards in padded jacks. Servants carrying bundles of firewood. 2 merchants protesting that their pack horses are trapped inside, and a priest from town holding his stole beneath his cloak as though holiness must be kept dry to function. A row of sharpened stakes has been dragged across the road. Beyond them, the yard burns with torchlight. You are admitted with Brother Oswin, possibly because no one wishes to argue with a monk at night, and possibly because you still look like someone who can carry things. This remains your most reliable disguise. Inside, the keep has changed since the feast. The smell of roasting and spiced wine has given way to pitch smoke, horse sweat, oiled leather, wet wool, and fear carefully denied. Men cluster in little knots. Some wear the king's colours. Others wear badges of northern lords who rode with him. A few have no badges at all, which makes everyone look at them more. Servants hurry past with armloads of billets for the fires. A cook shouts that, if soldiers want hot broth, soldiers may stop standing in the way of the broth. This is the first voice of reason you have heard all night. You're sent to the wall walk with a basket of wrapped oatcakes and a skin of small ale. Night watch, it turns out, is mostly standing still while your feet become distant rumours. The stair to the wall is slick with frost. At the top, wind strikes your face and pushes tears from your eyes. Below, the town lies dim, shutters closed, lanes pale under moonlight. The abbey bell sounds faintly behind you, marking an hour that feels much later than it is. A guard takes an oatcake and nods his thanks. He has a strip of red wool tied around his wrist. For luck you ask. For my wife, he says. She says red keeps off quarrels. He glances toward the hall below, where raised voices pulse behind shuttered windows. Seems she did not tie enough. The other guards laugh softly. One makes the sign against envy with 2 fingers. Some swear envy can enter a house through an unguarded window and sour milk, frighten infants, or turn friends into accusers. Even now, it is hard to tell whether envy is a spirit, a sin, or simply what happens when too many ambitious men breathe the same smoky air. From the wall, you watch factions gather without banners declaring themselves. That would be too easy. Men reveal loyalties by where they stand, whom they avoid, whose cup they accept. Near the stables, Sir Alaric's companions keep together, quiet and stiff. Across the yard, the king's household knights speak with the captain of the gate. At the hall entrance, the steward moves between them with a wax tablet and the haunted look of a man trying to count thunder. Sir Alaric is not visible, nor is the queen. The king is inside the hall, behind oak doors, where candles burn late and counsel grows teeth. You hear nothing clearly, only the rise and fall of men's voices. Once, a fist strikes a table. Once, someone laughs in a way that has no joy in it. A messenger runs from the hall to the stable, then back again without a horse, which unsettles everyone more than if he had left. Those who tell the tale never fully agree what is decided in that chamber. Some say the king means to arrest Alaric before dawn. Others say he only demands a public oath. A groom below whispers that the queen has asked to enter the hall and been refused. A laundress swears she saw her ladies packing a small chest. A page says Brother Matthew's forged letter has already been copied twice. The page is 12 in spirit if not in years, so nobody believes him entirely, but nobody ignores him either. The watchfires are fed. You carry wood to one of them and kneel near the flames, grateful for the heat. Pitch snaps. Sparks rise into the dark and vanish like brief souls. Beside the brazier, an old archer sharpens a knife on a whetstone with slow strokes. He tells you that in his village, people bury an iron nail beneath the threshold when a household falls into discord. Iron, they say, pins trouble down. He pauses, looks at the castle hall, and adds that the king might need a blacksmith's barrel. You smile despite the cold. The dog sits beside the fire, nose lifted, looking nobler than half the court. A guard gives it a scrap of smoked fish. The dog accepts as if receiving tribute from a lesser kingdom. Near midnight, Brother Oswin climbs to the wall. His face is pale under his hood, and his breath clouds before him. He tells the captain that the abbey archive is sealed and watched. The captain says the castle is sealed too. This is not true, not fully. Castles have postern doors, kitchen doors, chapel passages, drainage gaps, servant stairs, and the old human habit of making holes wherever walls become inconvenient. Still, the gates are barred, the watch doubled, and no one may leave without the king's word. No one you ask. Brother Oswin looks toward the Queen's tower. No one who is seen. Below, another horn sounds, this one from the lower town. A cluster of townsmen gathers near the closed gate with lanterns, anxious about levies, rumours, and sons working inside the walls. The castle guards shout them back. The town does not rebel. It only waits, and waiting is sometimes the first shape unrest takes. You stand on the wall until cold enters your bones and makes a home there. The half-burned moon sinks behind cloud. Watchfires glow red along the battlements. Men murmur prayers to saints, sweethearts, dead mothers, and practical boots. Somewhere under the roofline, a woman begins to sing very softly, perhaps a maid soothing fear in the Queen's chamber. The song is too faint for words, but its thread passes through the night. You look from the town to the abbey, from the abbey to the hall, from the hall to the shuttered chamber where the Queen may sit beside warmed stones and unburned letters. A forged letter sleeps under iron. A true vow sleeps under a doubtful relic. A king's suspicion walks awake. The royal triangle no longer belongs to three hearts. It has become gates, fires, knives, taxes, rumours, and men choosing corners in a yard. The watchfire pops. The dog leans against your boot, and before dawn has even begun to pale the east, you know the night has not finished closing around the castle. Before dawn, the castle begins to open in secret ways. Not the great gate, not with trumpets or banners, not with the honest groan of hinges announcing business to the whole town. Instead, bolts slide in passages where servants usually carry ash buckets. A postern door near the lower wall breathes cold air into a stairwell. Men move with covered lanterns, cloaks pulled close, boots wrapped in cloth to soften the sound. You're awake because the watchfire has burned low, and cold has made sleep impossible, and because the dog, with the solemn timing of a church bell, has stepped on your ribs to inform you that something interesting is happening. Brother Oswin stands beside the stair, hood shadowing his face. He has the look of a man who has argued all night and won only the privilege of being tired in a different location. "Come," he says. This is not an explanation, but it has become enough. You follow him down from the wall, past a brazier full of red coals, past guards who stare at the floor as if the stones have become unusually fascinating. The half-burned candle near the guard table still clings to life, its flame low and stubborn. Someone has tied a strip of blue thread around the iron latch of the postern door. For luck, perhaps, for farewell, for memory. No one can quite agree what blue means anymore, and that may be the whole trouble. Outside the door, a small party waits in the ditch road below the wall. There are 6 riders, 2 pack horses, 1 priest, and 3 cloaked travellers on foot. Their shapes blur in the dark before dawn. Frost lies pale on their shoulders. One carries a pilgrim staff hung with badges, Canterbury scallop, St. Michael's sword, a little pewter heart bent nearly flat. Another wears a hood so deep you see no face at all. A third mutters into a wool scarf and smells faintly of vinegar, which some swear keeps bad air and worse company away, even now. It is hard to tell whether vinegar protects anyone, but it does discourage close conversation. Then Sir Alaric steps from the shadow of the wall. He wears no bright sign of rank now, only a dark cloak, riding gloves, and a sword bound in plain leather. The silver hawks are gone from his shoulder. Without them, he looks both smaller and more dangerous, like a fire covered before travel. A guard brings his horse, already saddled. Brother Oswin approaches him, and the two speak quietly. You catch only pieces. By the king's mercy. Before sunrise, no return without summons. North Road, so that is the shape of it. Not arrest, not yet, not death, not tonight. Exile wearing the softer name of royal service. Sir Alaric is to leave before the town wakes fully, sent toward the northern border, or perhaps to a distant command, or perhaps simply away from the Queen's windows. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the king spares him from love, from trial, or from murder. Kings often call several things mercy when none of them are gentle. You look toward the tower. High above, behind horn panes and stone tracery, one faint light burns, the Queen's chamber. Perhaps she watches. Perhaps she's been locked from the window. Perhaps she sits beside warmed stones with the silver hand charm in her palm, listening for hooves she cannot follow. The castle does not answer. It holds its walls close. A priest gives Alaric a travelling blessing, quick and quiet, because even disgrace requires proper spiritual paperwork. He sprinkles holy water from a little brass vessel. drops freeze almost as soon as they touch the horse's mane. The dog sneezes when one lands on its nose, which is not, you hope, a theological judgment. Brother Oswin presses something into Alaric's hand. The knight looks down. You see a glimmer of pewter St. Valentine, rescued from beneath a doubtful relic, now travelling into cold uncertainty. Alaric closes his fist around it and bows his head. Some vows are safer as prayers, the monk says. Alaric's mouth moves. You do not hear the words. Perhaps he says her name. Perhaps he says forgive me. Perhaps he says nothing at all, and the knight, merciful for once, invents tenderness on his behalf. The postern party begins to move. You go with them because Brother Oswin directs you toward one of the pack horses and hands you a bundle of oatcakes, and because no one has yet discovered a better use for you than carrying edible things through danger. The road dips away from the castle wall toward the pilgrim track beyond the town fields. Behind you, the watchfires shrink. Ahead, frost-whitened hedges lead into darkness. The town gate remains closed, but small roads have their own memory. You pass between garden walls, along a drainage ditch glazed with ice, then out by the old leper chapel, where travellers sometimes leave coins in a stone bowl without touching the door. A charm of rowan twigs hanged above the chapel arch. Some swear rowan keeps witches from counting your steps. Others say it keeps sadness from following too closely. Tonight, with Alaric riding ahead in silence, you hope for the second. By the time the party reaches the pilgrim road, the sky has paled from black to iron grey. Other travellers join like shadows joining a larger shadow, a wool seller with 2 mules, a widow bound for her brother's village, 2 monks from another house, and a singer with a cracked rebeck wrapped in cloth. They know something has happened before anyone tells them. News has a smell. It clings to riders, to sealed faces, to guards who will not meet your eyes. At the first roadside fire, where pilgrims warm their hands over damp sticks, the tale begins changing. The knight betrayed the king, one man says. No, the king betrayed him first, says another. The queen enchanted him with a blue ribbon, whispers a woman crossing herself. Blue ribbon, the singer says. Better if it were a glove. Rhymes with love. And there, in the cold, you watch truth become song before breakfast. The singer plucks 2 soft notes, testing his strings. By noon, perhaps, Sir Alaric will have kissed the queen beneath 7 candles. By evening, he may have fought 12 men at the postern gate. By next winter, the queen will have given him a ring, a hawk, a lock of hair, a kingdom, or a curse, depending on what keeps listeners awake. Some swear minstrels preserve memory. Others mutter that minstrels preserve only what fits the tune. You walk beside the pack horse, sharing oatcakes with the widow, who tells you her grandmother believed lovers parted before dawn must never look back, or their souls will snag on the road. Alaric does not look back, not once. His horse moves steadily ahead, dark against the whitening fields. Behind you the castle fades into mist. The dog trots close to your boot. Brother Oswin walks with his eyes lowered, fingers moving over his rosary. The pilgrim badges on the staff ahead clink softly with each step. Somewhere far off, the abbey bell rings, faint as memory, measuring an hour the court will later deny, embroider, curse, and sing. You keep walking northward, away from the watchfires, carrying bread, rumour, and the cold knowledge that exile is sometimes only another name for a heart being dragged out of reach. Dawn finds you on the pilgrim road with frost in your cuffs and the taste of oatcake still dry on your tongue. The party has thinned through the grey hours, each traveller drawn onward by need, Fear, duty, or the simple stubbornness that keeps feet moving after sleep has become a distant luxury. Sir Alaric rides ahead now, no longer close enough for talk, only near enough to remain part of the road's dark line. His cloak lifts and settles in the morning wind. He still does not look back. Behind you, the castle has vanished into low mist. You know it is there, above the town, holding its queen, its king, its sealed doors, its forged letter, its doubtful relic, and all the little fires of suspicion that burn even after watchfires die. Yet the farther you walk, the more it becomes shape rather than stone, tale rather than place. This is how scandal travels first in whispers, then in guesses, then in songs, and finally in a version so polished by retelling that no mud remains on its boots. The pilgrim road bends toward a river. You hear it before you see it, a low winter murmur beneath the bell of morning birds. Frost whitens the reeds along the bank. A thin skin of ice gathers near the stones, broken where the current moves faster. Beside the crossing stands a small riverside shrine, no bigger than a shepherd's hut, built of rough stone with a little wooden roof dark from weather. Inside its niche, a painted saint holds a book in one hand and something that may once have been a lily in the other. Rain and candle soot have blurred the face until the saint looks less holy than patiently tired. Travellers stop there. Everyone does. Even those who claim they're in haste touch the lintel, bow their heads, or leave something small, a bent pin, a thread, a crumb of bread, a copper too thin to impress anyone but perhaps a merciful saint. Some swear that river shrines listen better at dawn, when running water carries prayers swiftly downstream. No one can quite agree whether the saint receives them, the river receives them, or the act of stopping simply gives frightened people a breath in which to remember they are alive. You stop too. The dog drinks at the bank, then shakes icy droplets onto your hem with the loyalty of a companion determined to keep you humble. Brother Oswin kneels stiffly before the shrine. His rosary beads click softly between his fingers. The widow who shared your oatcakes lights a little tallow dip from a coal carried in a covered pot. The flame catches, weak and yellow, then steadies under the shrine roof. It is not beeswax, not courtly, not fine, but its light is honest. Sir Alaric dismounts. For a moment, the road seems to pause with him. The pilgrims glance without seeming to glance. The singer with the cracked rebeck lowers his eyes, though you suspect he is storing every detail like dry wood for later use. Alaric leads his horse to the water. He lets it drink only a little at first, careful in the old groom's way, then loosens the girth. His face is pale with cold and waking grief. Brother Oswin rises and approaches him. They stand beside the reeds, speaking low. You hear only fragments, carried by the river air. North Road. The king's word. Her safety. God keep what men cannot. Then Alaric opens his hand. In his palm lies the pewter badge of Saint Valentine. For one breath, you think he will cast it into the river. That would make a fine song. A silver-grey saint sinking beneath dawn water, carrying forbidden love away under ice. But life, being less tidy than minstrels prefer, chooses something quieter. Alaric wraps the badge in the strip of blue thread from the postern latch and presses it into a crack in the shrine wall, behind the painted saint, where only someone kneeling close would ever find it. A hidden token, not destroyed, not worn, left between road and river, prayer and memory. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether Queen Isolde sent that blue thread, whether Brother Oswin tied it there himself, or whether some servant, kinder than wise, placed it on the latch before the exile began. In time, the thread will become a ribbon, The ribbon will become a veil. The veil will become, in one particularly ambitious ballad, a banner lowered from the Queen's tower under a rain of silver stars. But here, in the cold truth of morning, it is only thread, slightly frayed, trembling in a knight's hand. Alaric steps back from the shrine. He bows his head. No one speaks. Across the river, the road divides one branch north toward border keeps and long service under hard skies, another east toward market towns, abbeys, and eventually places where nobody knows your face unless a singer arrives first. Alaric mounts. The priest gives him another blessing. Brother Oswin makes the sign of the cross. The dog, sensing departures but not politics, wags once. Then Sir Alaric rides on. He takes the northern road. His horse climbs the pale track beyond the river, hooves ringing faintly on frozen stones. He grows smaller between leafless hedges, a dark figure under a brightening sky, until mist and distance soften him into rumour. Only then does Brother Oswin let out a long breath. You remain at the shrine after the others begin to move. Morning widens. Smoke lifts from a cottage beyond the river, where someone is already stirring pottage for the day. A woman beats a rug against a fence. A boy drives geese toward the stubble, their complaints sharp and worldly. Life resumes with its usual indifference to heartbreak. Bread must be baked, rushes must be changed, market tolls must be paid, horses must be fed. Even kingdoms cannot sigh forever. There is always water to draw. The singer plucks his rebec softly. Not a full tune yet, only a few notes testing the air. You know what will happen. By nightfall in some alehouse, the king will be crueler or kinder than truth. The queen will be faithless, saintly, enchanted, imprisoned, or brave, depending on the singer's audience. Sir Alaric will become taller. Brother Oswin will become older. The dog will probably be omitted, which is unjust, since it has shown better judgment than most nobles involved. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the scandal shook the kingdom because love was powerful, or because power made love dangerous. Perhaps both. Perhaps a royal heart cannot break quietly because too many lives are built around listening for cracks. You touch the shrine wall where the badge is hidden. The stone is cold beneath your fingertips. The river moves on, carrying broken reflections of reeds, sky, and morning light. Somewhere far behind you, the queen may stand at her window. Somewhere in the castle hall, the king may sit beneath painted rafters, holding victory that tastes of ash. Somewhere in the abbey archive, the forged letter waits in darkness, proof that lies can survive almost as well as truth if locked carefully enough. The bell from a distant monastery drifts over the fields. You pull your cloak closer, call softly to the dog, and step away from the river shrine. The road ahead is pale, muddy, and ordinary. After all the sealed letters, candlelit vows, watchfires, and whispers, the world returns to the simple work of walking. Word count 1176. The morning grows quieter as you leave the shrine behind, and the road loosens its grip on the night. Frost melts slowly along the hedges. The dog pads beside you without hurry, its paws dark with river mud, its head lowered in peaceful thought, or perhaps only in search of another crust. Behind you, the little candle at the shrine burns smaller beneath its wooden roof, a patient flame tucked into stone. You breathe in the cold air, and it feels softer now. The castle, the queen, the king, the knight, the monk, the market, the alehouse, the wet gate, the half-burned candle, each one settles back into the deep folds of memory. They do not vanish. They simply grow gentle at the edges, like shapes seen through woolen sleep. The river keeps speaking behind you, low and steady. It carries no judgment. It carries no courtly argument. It carries reeds, pale light, loosened ice, and the quiet prayers of travellers who stop only long enough to leave a pin, a thread, or a little hope they cannot hold alone. You walk on beneath a sky slowly warming from grey to pearl. A cottage door opens. Smoke rises straight into still air. Somewhere, someone pours ale into a wooden cup. Somewhere, a monk turns a page with ink-stained fingers. Somewhere, rushes are scattered fresh across a cold floor, and the small habits of the world begin again. And now the road grows dimmer, not because night returns, but because your own room is waiting beyond the tale. The torches sink low, the bells fade, the river becomes a hush. The dog curls near the last warmth of the fire. You are safe. You are warm enough. The medieval world folds itself away, stone by stone, candle by candle, until only darkness remains, soft as a wool blanket and quiet as a whispered blessing.